So, welcome back to MacDuffie's Greek drama debate by the Advanced Placement Literature and Composition students at our campus. If you've been with us for the first part of the debate, you saw one section of my English class debate, the play Medea. This section of AP English is going to be debating Sophocles' Antigone and the character and actions of the title character in that play, Antigone. If you haven't read the play Antigone, it's really about a woman who has to make an impossible choice. She has to decide between adhering to the laws of the state or the laws of the gods, because it is her duty as a family member, as a woman, to bury her brother, who has been involved in the murder of her other brother in the civil war that is going on. Before we get to all of this, though, we're going to have students introduce themselves. Again, if you could tell us a little bit about where you're from, what you do at school, maybe some of the courses that you take, that would be great. We'll start with this team over here.
All right, so my name is Ege, I'm from Turkey. I'm a men's physique level bodybuilder, and then I also play basketball in school, and then I take APs. Those are my courses.
Great. Make sure the mic is you can move that mic, folks, and make sure that it's pointed up towards you.
Hello, my name is Nikhil Anjeti. I'm from Chicopee, Mass, and I run Key Club.
My name is Caesar. I'm from Spain, and I'm part of the cross country and the tennis team in MacDuffie.
Hi, my name is Manja. I'm from Serbia. I'm a senior. I'm the captain of the volleyball team.
Thank you. And this team is arguing in favor of Antigone, yes? Okay. And to the opposing team, please. Introductions?
My name is Hollis. I'm from China. I like to play basketball and dance.
And don't be afraid to move that mic, everybody. We want to see your face, okay?
Hi, my name is Tanny. I'm a senior and I'm a date and boarding prefect.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm from Vietnam and I do portfolio honor.
Hi, I'm Arwen Silva. I'm from Granby, Massachusetts, and I am the school's event and activities coordinator, as well as a co-editor of our literary magazine, The Muse.
Thank you very much, both teams. Again, as you can see, our students are involved in a lot of different things inside and outside of the classroom, and you'll get to know them a little bit more through this debate. Which team read their opening statement first in class? Okay, so we will start with you again, please. Thank you.
We defend Antigone as a central moral hero of the play, as she embodies the power of the people, the power of gods, and family duties, all above the flawed lens of state law. Antigone protects the dignity of her fellow brother, Polyneices, by attempting to proper burial in favor of the gods, especially the god of the underworld, Hades. She defends the power of the state by showing that the people disagree with its injustice, laws, and that the government refuses to listen to the voices of its citizens. Moreover, Antigone becomes the moral voice of the citizens of Thebes. She quietly disagrees with Creon, but fears his power. Additionally, Antigone's sense of family duty drives her resistance. She believed that burying her brother wasn't just a personal responsibility, but a moral obligation that comes from divine and familiar law. Therefore, her wish to honor her family is one that no ruler has the authority to oppose. Antigone's decision to still act alone, even when Ismene refuses to help, shows how deeply she feels her responsibility as a sister. Hence, her loyalty to her family shows that in Greek culture, devotion to family and dedication to the gods are connected, which makes her the moral heart of the play.
Furthermore, the opposition might argue that Antigone's defiance breaks the stability and opinion of state law, since law is essential to order. However, Sophocles' play shows that Creon's misuse of rule, ignoring divine and familial obligations, leads to not order but ruin. The deaths of Haman and Euripides, along with the collapse of his authority due to his hubris-filled ruling. Overall, Antigone's fight for justice exposes how a state ruled by fear and pride cannot stand. Sophocles teaches that true justice instead comes from democracy, divine law, and family duty, values that keep both the people and the state strong. In the end, Antigone stands as the true moral hero because her loyalty to the gods, her devotion to family, and her courage to speak for the people rise above the flaws of the state law.
Thank you very much for that opening statement. In a nutshell, she may be breaking the law of the state, but she is doing so in order to honor her brother and the gods. And furthermore, she is a voice for democracy in this play and a voice against unjust rule in the person of Creon. Okay, opposing team.
Our position is that Antigone's actions are rooted in excessive pride, showing a self-centered nature rather than genuine morality. In Sophocles' Antigone, what may appear as courage and moral duty is, in truth, the tragic result of hubris, the same destructive pride that has haunted her family for generations. Antigone does not act as a humble follower of divine law, but as an individual seeking personal glory. She disguises her defiance as righteousness, using the authority of the gods as justification to elevate herself above others, including her sister Ismene, King Creon, and even the divine will she claims to serve. From the very beginning, Antigone rejects compassion and reason, isolating herself from those who love her most. What she calls loyalty is driven by possessiveness, and what she calls honor is a pursuit of self-importance. Her defiance of Creon's law shows her belief that her moral judgment outweighs both civic order and divine patience.
Yet, within any steady society, law and order exist to maintain balance and protect justice. Antigone's active choice to defy the laws of King Creon placed her own beliefs above the decreed law and reveals the lack of respect she held for authority and social order. Her choice is not an act of selfless bravery, but a reckless assertion of superiority, proving that she values her reputation more than the welfare of others. She welcomes her fate as if it were a triumph, finding satisfaction in her suffering and glory in her downfall. However, her end is not a moral victory, but a warning. Antigone's tragedy lies in her moral blindness, her inability to see that true virtue requires humility and balance, not stubborn pride. Through her, Sophocles shows that when pride disguises itself as righteousness, it destroys not only the person who holds it, but also those bound to them. Antigone's fate serves as a timeless reminder that when pride rules over reason and love, both the individual and the state are destined to collapse.
Thank you very much for that good opening statement as well. So she is not an icon of moral duty and honor. She is, in fact, someone who has hubris and a lack of respect for the social order. All right, over here, first point.
So you guys said she did it not because of the gods, the divine law, or like as a selfless thing. She did it for like for herself and to for her pride. But we believe she did it to support her brother, as she says, "I shall lie down with him in death, I shall be as dear to him as he is to me," which like means she wants to like do it to give his brother like the honor he deserves and like the respect that he deserves in burial, especially because of the traditions in the Greek life and the afterlife.
Oh, I think we have a two-team response here, sorry.
And we can also see her determination in this act by this quote: "I will do my part, and yours, if you will not, to her brother. False to him, I will never be found." And this shows Antigone's character as actually determined to justify her brother.
Thank you very much. So feel free to have a two-team response. Go right ahead.
Okay. So the opposing team states that Antigone is basically doing so because she wants to honor her brother, but we actually believe that she's saying so as an excuse for her personal pride. So in the book, there's a quote saying, "Oh, denounce it. You will be far more hateful for your silence if you do not proclaim these things to all." So Antigone here is forcing Ismene to confess her sin to Creon. And we can see Antigone's need for recognition and self-righteous here really clear. She wants her defiance to be known, not quietly done out of pure lawful duty. And it suggests how she cares about being seen as moral superior public. She turns a private act of honoring into a public act of pride. So, to sum it up, we believe that under the hypocritical mask of honoring her brother, she is actually doing it all for her own pride.
Are we tag teaming? Anybody going up there with Hollis? Yes.
On top of that, you say that she does what she does for her brother and her family. One thing that we can say for that is a quote from page 107, "For I shall not suffer aught so dreadful as an ignoble death." What she does for her brother and the way that she claims that she cares to lie with her brother, she does not do for her brother. She does it for herself. She is not afraid of death, but she only wants to die for her pride.
So again, the points of hubris. All right, back over here. New point or continuing point? Feel free to jump to a new one.
So first of all, I would want to say there's like nothing more noble than doing something for your family, and which is Antigone is doing by burying his brother. You said she has pride, but I see no pride here. I just see like love for the family, love for the people who've been with you till day one. And I would say Ismene is afraid. Ismene is like bound in like the circumstances that Creon puts on her. She says, "I'll do them no dishonor, but to defy the state, I have no strength for that," which really shows her cowardice. Antigone says, "So plead then, I will go to heap the earth above the brother whom I love," which actually shows Antigone's love for her brother, love for her day ones.
So Antigone is faithful and loving. Ismene is a coward. Okay, over here.
As you guys are saying, that Antigone is saying that Ismene is not really a supporter for what her action is. However, on page 105, as Creon, all you care is for him by Antigone. Antigone viewed her sister Ismene as a betrayer of the family for following Creon laws and punishing family duty. However, Ismene is trying to be cautious and save her sister's life. Pride disguises as principle. Antigone refuses to accept any point of view beside her own, treating Ismene no better than a villain in the play.
So, again, Antigone's self-centered, acting for selfish reasons, and Ismene is perhaps representing the via media, the golden rule, moderation in all things. Okay, next point.
So Creon says the state is the king, meaning that he only cares about himself and that he values more like the power and his own opinion than listening to other citizens. Also, he says that what Antigone is doing, that's like hubris and that she's only doing it for herself. Well, I think that it's not true. She's saying that she also values people who are dead, the same as people who are living. She says, "It is the dead, not the living, who make the longest demands. We die forever." So she's saying that the dead deserve respect and proper rituals more than the living do. And her choice to bury her brother isn't about breaking the law. It's about doing what's morally and spiritually right, showing her loyalty to eternal justice rather than temporary rules. And also she's followed by generational trauma, where she feels like she's in a, let's say, a trap, that her family has a curse that needs to be continued throughout generations, while she's trying to break that circle and trying to say that her family is doing right and that they don't want to obey the law of the king.
So a couple of points there to articulate. She may be breaking the law, but she's breaking the law of a king who is a tyrant. And she may be suffering generational trauma. We can't forget that Antigone is both sister and child of Oedipus. And of course, if you've read that play, you know the tragedy and the trauma from that play. All right, next point. We've got a tag team again. Okay.
You say that a lot of what she does goes against the laws, but even with that, and even with obeying the divine law, it was still the task of a person in Greek society to follow the laws of the king. On page 100, the chorus states, "When he honors the laws of the land, and that justice which he hath sworn by the gods to uphold, proudly stands his city. No city hath he who, for his rashness, dwells with sin." This shows the importance of respecting both human law and divine justice. Those who act rashly or arrogantly will bring ruin not only upon themselves, but also their communities. Claiming that Antigone's rebellious act towards orders will result in the destruction of Thebes' city. Antigone's noble actions of defying the king's law are what causes the downfall of Thebes.
Although Antigone claims she wishes to honor her brother by giving him the burial that Hades desires, her actions do not reflect the proper Greek funerary costumes that would truly allow Polynices to enter the afterlife. In ancient Greece, burial was a sacred and structured ritual primarily performed by a woman and consisted of 3 key stages: the prosthesis, laying out and preparing the body; the akphora, a funeral procession before dawn; and the interment, the actual burial or cremation, often with placement of a coin, an obol, to pay Charon for a passage to Hades. Antigone, however, performs none of these. She does not wash, anoint, or lay out the body, nor she does lead a formal procession or ensure that her brother has the necessary offerings for the afterlife. Instead, she merely sprinkles a handful of dust over the corpse in secret, a symbolic act rather than complete ritual. This suggests that Antigone's true motivation is not to fulfill the religious duties owed to the dead, but to make a moral and political statement in defiance of Creon law. And if she truly sought to bury her brother according to the rites that has mentioned, she would have carried out the full, proper, and brutal Greek burial ceremony, not a brief gesture of rebellion.
Antigone has not fulfilled the burial rites according to the gods, although she claims to. And the chorus says, any king must be obeyed, even if he's a tyrant. Over here.
Even if her burial is symbolic, she still does try her best, unlike Creon and his mini, who just leave their brother and relatives in limbo. And another point I want to make is that you guys say that Creon, it's not Creon's fault, it's Antigone's fault that all this has happened. But we can see near the end of the play that Creon says, "Ah me yonder, I behold anew a second woe. What destiny, what can yet await me? I have now raised my son in my arms, and there again I see a corpse before me. Alas, alas, unhappy mother, alas, my child." We can see Creon taking accountability of the actions in the play, of the tragedy. And he realizes the mistake of his authority over democracy and moral law, supporting the play's idea by Sophocles of this idea.
I also want to state that you said that the chorus is on their like against Antigone, which I don't believe. Like the quote is love unconquered in battle, love that makes heroic passionate. Love sits on the throne besides eternal law. Basically, they're praising love as a force stronger than any human law or king law. By linking love to eternal law, this quote validates Antigone's actions. Moreover, it shows how Antigone's actions are morally justified and noble, and they continue to praise her as a person.
So a couple of interesting points here. The first of which is that Creon, at the end of the play, takes responsibility for any ruin in the play. And of course, he's referring directly to the death of his wife, Eurydice, and the death of his son, Haman. That it's not Antigone who did this. He did it through his own inflexibility. And we're also saying that the chorus can't always be trusted, that the chorus thinks one thing one moment and one thing the next moment, siding at times with Creon, siding at other times with Antigone. Over here.
So I'm gonna rebuttal against the very first point you guys just said about how Antigone tried her best to bury her brother and how that shows like her love toward her brother. We believe that the fact that she buried her brother the second time in the middle of the middle of the moon, shows how she actually is doing so because she wants everyone to see it and how this can make her action public and brings her pride.
In the play, the chorus also mentioned that on page 112, revenge actions claims a certain praise for reverence, but an offense against power cannot be brooked by him who has the power in his keeping. Your self-wielded temper has wielded your ruin. The chorus warns Antigone that even actions done with reverence or good intentions can have serious consequences. When they go against authority, the chorus emphasizes that Antigone's stubbornness and refusal to obey Korean law will bring her destructions, no matter how morally justified she thinks her actions are.
So again, a couple good points. I'm going to unpack the first. Antigone successfully buried her brother at night. Why did she go back and do it a second time in the middle of the day if it were not to be caught and to receive the glory and pride of a martyr? And again, we're hearing that the chorus is supporting Creon or the state or authority. All right, we're going to hear one of your last statements here. We're coming to a close, okay?
So first of all, to review what you just said about the chorus supporting Creon, like his law, they also say that the mighty wars of the proud are paid in full with mighty blows of fate, which reminds that divine justice punishes arrogance. So like, even if you're like if you think that everyone should obey you, like doesn't matter if you're like eternist, it's not true. Divine law is always over human law.
And like, second of all, we're talking about Creon here, who's a tyrant who doesn't listen to what the citizens say. Like, people is the city, not one man is the city. And so how can Antigone have time to even do a proper burial with Creon, who puts laws and restrictions to everything? So I'm going to give a code. And chorus says, Creon shows the world that of all the ills afflicted men, the worst is lack of judgment. It shows Creon's lack of judgment and lack of democracy. But another quote to follow that, Creon says to Tiresias, whatever you say, you will not change my will. This shows Creon's stubbornness and how bad a king he is.
Creon is an unjust king if he does not consider the laws of the gods and the will of the people. And certainly the will of the people are in favor of Antigone. All right, one of your last comments here on this side. And then we're going into closing statement.
Like you guys have mentioned that no any mortals should put themselves above the divine law. On page 115, Tiresias, the prophet, mentioned that. Therefore, the gods no longer accept prayer and sacrifice at all hands, or the flame of meat offering, nor does any bird give a clear sign by its shrill cry. For they have tasted the fatness of the sent man blood, which means that pride is the nuisance, whether in Creon or Antigone. Antigone asserts her personal moral code over the laws of Thebes and even over Creon authority, which minor hubris rather than genuine moral or religious duty. While she claims loyalty to the gods, her focus is on her own judgment and glory and moral image, not true divine obedience. And in ancient Greek, whence the chaos or ruin happened within the cities, no mortals claimed they should have the power of the god or using religious symbols for their own self-judgment.
More than that, on the topic of Creon being mostly responsible for the ruin, there's a quote on page 118 from the Messenger: "Death and the living are guilty for the dead." That shows that every action that has occurred is the response of someone who was alive. It shows that Antigone's choices brought destruction and guilt to other, that her own actions did not cause only her own downfall, but the downfall of Hymen and Eurydice as well.
All right, now again, in the interest of time, I know you'd like to be saying more as you did in class, but we're going to cut right to an abbreviated closing statement, and we'll start here. Closing statement. Try to present something new if you can.
We can accept that Antigone might have a sense of pride. However, that pride comes from a sense of love. Additionally, we can see that all her actions stem from a curse, leading to generational trauma. And even if Ismena follows the rules of moderation, she does not strive for change in her curse. We can see this hubris being used in a much better sense than Creon, a hubris used for progression of, rather than the selfishness of aspects, as seen by the quote, "Haemon, that is no city which belongs to one man," on page 109.
Thank you very much. Everyone, if audience, and could we give a hand to both teams who debated Antigone? Good job, folks. All right. Oh, I'm so sorry. All right, closing statement. We'll clap again, I promise.
In the end, our team believed that Antigone is not an icon for democracy, but overconfidence of her power. She compares herself to the daughter of Tantalus to show her unavoidable suffering. Yet, as a mortal, she cannot truly match a goddess. It shows how overconfident she is by overplacing herself beyond the status she deserved.
In addition, her action also comes from harmful traits she passed down from her cursed family. Specifically, the trauma-driven compulsive rebellion psychological disorder, which makes her a bringer of tragedy. That is to say, Antigone is not just a victim of fate. Her choice actively spread death and suffering, revealing her dangerous, almost bad nature.
Thank you. I'm glad we didn't miss that. That was a good closing. Let's give him a hand again. So you got a lot of support out there, folks. Those of you who might be watching on YouTube, if you've stayed for us for part of this presentation or for all of it, we really want to thank you. It's added a lot of import to the work we do in our classroom to feel as though it matters outside in the real world. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the MacDuffie School, please visit our website. As you can see here from the students' introductions, we are an international and an American school with boarding and day students. We have over 130 years of history here in Western Massachusetts, and we are really so fortunate to be located near the 5 colleges: Smith, Mount Holyoke, Amherst, UMass, an hour away from Boston, 3 hours from New York City. And we're fortunate to partner with wonderful places like the Holyoke Media Center, where we are today. And we want to give, again, a special thanks to the Media Center, to the director, Scott McPherson, who has continued to help us year after year to make learning opportunities meaningful for our students. So thank you to the Holyoke Media, and thank you for watching.